Dead of Night, the story of one night in a small town that changed the lives of many and ended the lives of some.
Hello everybody and welcome to one of my reviews. My name is John Bleasdale, I'm a writer and film critic, and today I'm going to be looking at the cult classic by Bob Clark, Deathdream. This film came out in 1972. It is not the first Bob Clark film. Bob Clark is a director with quite a few hits under his belt, but he was a low-budget filmmaker at the time of this release. It's only his third feature film. The film's title, Deathdream, is a second title. Originally it was titled Dead of Night, but that title was changed due to confusion with the British portmanteau film classic from the 1940s. It is written by Alan Ormsby, based on a short story called The Monkey's Paw, classic short story, and it stars Richard Backus, John Marley and Lynn Carlin. John Marley and Lynn Carlin you might already recognise from John Cassavetes' famous film, his Underground, famous film, Faces. John Marley is also the studio producer who finds a horse's head in his bed in Francis Ford Coppola's Godfather. The story of the film is very simple. A family is waiting for their son to come home from Vietnam. The mother, played by Lynn Carlin, is praying for his salvation, and we see in a prologue the soldiers in very low budget jungle location under attack, and apparently more than one of the soldiers is shot and wounded, if not fatally then very seriously, at which point we go to the domestic strained life of the family back in America. And they receive a telegram from the army telling them that their son has been killed in action. Later, at a truck stop, a man has picked up a hitchhiker who he describes as very taciturn and doesn't apparently thank him for his ride, and later turns up dead. At that point, back to the house, and who should turn up out of the blue in the dead of night, creeping into the house, but Andy, the son who was presumed missing in action and dead, or killed in action, not missing, much to the delight of the family. He's got something of a glassy stare, and but this is perfectly acceptable with a PTSD kind of situation, or combat fatigue, as it was called in those days. And he's welcomed back, and everybody wants to get back to normal as soon as possible. There's an interesting generational thing here, as everybody is comparing this war to the Korean War, which other soldiers have fought and come back from without as much apparent mental disturbance or anguish. But Andy is certainly not one of these, and he is increasingly unhinged in his behaviour towards the family dog, which certainly doesn't seem to be welcoming him back, and towards the neighbourhood kids who want to show off their karate, and that doesn't end well either. Andy is interesting in the sense that he is it's never quite clear what he has become, whether he's a ghost or a zombie or a vampire or what, but he is certainly possessed of some supernatural powers, and also he is falling to pieces. There was a Joe Dante film about the Iraq War, a portmanteau TV film, which seems heavily influenced by this, and there were several attempts made to remake this film. Bob Clark, of course, would go on to make Black Christmas, which became a extremely influential slasher. There was talk of remaking that film was remade, and there was talk of remaking this film with Eli Roth, but fortunately that didn't occur. I'm not a big fan of Eli Roth, to tell you the truth. As far as the original film is concerned, this is creepy. This is genuinely creepy. It has some great set pieces, some great scenes. There's a scene in a drive-in which is particularly gruesome. What I love is also there's an unvarnished quality. Alan Ormsby, who wrote the film, was a makeup artist, and Tom Savino, the legendary Tom Savino, also worked on the film. It's got a low budget, but it seems to make the best of that low budget with a car chase and some really interesting bits. I mean, it's cheap enough for it to be sort of fun. Without ever really breaking the credibility, so you can take it seriously. And there are some genuinely funny and satirical moments in it. This film is dealing with serious issues to some degree, but it's not taking itself seriously at all. And there's a genuine tragedy, especially in the finale of the film, which I won't spoil for you, but which has some genuine pathos to it. Not to mention the portrait of a family having to deal with the after effects of a war and the after effects of their young men going off to fight in this war. Particularly touching, I think, is when Andy comes back and his sister arranges a double date for them to go on with his old girlfriend who is going to get back together, and it's just such a beautifully acted few scenes. There's a real sense. There's always this. This is for me like a key point in any horror film, which I particularly like. It's that moment where there's such a human connection in the film that you wish the film you were watching was not a horror film. You wish that something else was going to happen and these characters could achieve some sort of happiness, or at least survive the film, get out of the film without being torn to pieces in some way. I always think that's a really good sign of a horror film kind of pushing beyond its generic boundaries. Having said that, I mean, it exists within the genre. Texas Chainsaw Massacre does this, and the Australian horror film Wolf Creek is another good example where the film takes it's a slow burn, so it takes a long time to get to the actual horror, so much so that you really feel you've got to know the characters, and at that point that you really have got to know the characters, you wish that you could spend the rest of the film with them in a romantic comedy or a dramedy or something else, and not what you get served in the last third of the movie, which is horrific indeed. If you haven't seen that film, I would also recommend you seek it out. Okay, well, that's Deathdream, 1974 horror film, not 1972 as I referenced earlier. 1972 was. Let me just check. I think, if I remember rightly, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. Deathdream came out the same year as Black Christmas. And then, I mean, to talk about Bob Clark's wider career, his most successful film, and in fact Canada's highest grossing film, was Porky's, which in the 1980s, it's 1981, Porky's and Porky's 2, the sequel, which Bob Clark also did. There was a third film which he had nothing to do with. These were huge hits and kind of established the sex teen comedy as a genre, explicit sex teen comedy, explicit for the time, certainly. This was beyond National Lampoon's Animal House in terms of perceived vulgarity or candidness about sexual issues. Porky's also introduced the world to a young Kim Cattrall, who would later find fame as in, I think she plays Samantha, doesn't she, in Sex and the City? I'm not entirely sure. My Sex and the City is very much second hand and reliant on a couple of episodes only, I'm afraid. Yeah, maybe more than a couple, but still, it's not as fresh as perhaps it should be. If you enjoyed this review, please remember to like and subscribe. and I'll be back with some more presently. Take care.
Dead of night. The story of one night in a small town that changed the lives of many and ended the lives of some. As night fell, something evil descended upon the town. Something corrupt, unspeakable. Behind their drawn curtains, they waited as fear walked in the dead of night.
Hello, this is the police department. Please identify yourself. Hello. Hello.
Hey, soldier, where you headed? Come on, hop aboard.
What does it say, Daddy?
It's Andy.
Oh, God! Oh! He's home. Andy!
I didn't know Andy was home.
Is that Andy?
Joanne doesn't even know he's home yet. She'll be so surprised.
But Andy wouldn't kill anybody.
You're all right.
I can tell.
The boy went away to fight a war. A man came back. But something came with him. Something unspeakable. Dead of Night, starring Academy Award winners John Marley and Lynn Carlin. Due to the importance of the first 5 minutes of Dead of Night, audiences will not be seated after the beginning of the picture.